All business owners should study cults, hashtag not joking, and not for the obvious branding reasons. This will not be a lesson on how to charge $100 for a t-shirt that costs you $3 to make because it has a cult-like following. This episode is not on branding, nor is it how to create a cult-like following amongst your employees. Neither are interesting goals, to be honest. Customers should buy your products because they're the best products, not because they're the coolest. And your employees should work for you because they agree with your vision and you provide them with a place to grow and you pay them well, not because they follow your cult of personality. No, that's not why you should study cults. Instead, it's because you have to learn how to brainwash yourself. I use this phrase all the time. And I know cults don't have exactly the best reputation, or should they, but nonetheless, they are fascinating, are they not? They cut to the core of our psychology as humans. It's the same reason why we're fascinated with the Nazi, North Korea, suicide bombers, and kamikaze pilots. It's why we watch scary movies. And yes, it's why we go to church and listen even to podcasts like this one. Cults are stimulating because they're fringe. And we as humans like fringe. Half as a synonym for niche or community. If I could only find the right group of me-like weirdos, I would finally feel happy. But also half as a synonym for voyeurism. I am bored, show me something extreme. Cults are definitionally biased. They go there and are unapologetic about it. The outer limits of our society. They're gruesome, they're strange, they're interesting, they're chaotic, they're wild. They're on the other side of the wall while we are here safe watching. It's nice to look at, right? To peer out and read about them. To listen in and wonder, how could they ever go that far? How could it ever get that bad? How could someone be so stupid as to just follow the orders of someone so obviously insane? The leader couldn't possibly be so charismatic and charming. How could you believe in such irrational nonsense? I could never. I would never. I am better. It's like going to outer space and seeing the stars right up close, but without any of the danger. Holding the light in your hand. Ah, that's what it feels. We love it. Which is why there are so many documentaries about Jonestown, the now famous Don't Drink the Kool-Aid cult from San Francisco, in which hundreds of people committed suicide all together. Or the tragic Waco, Texas fire of the Branch Davidians, right after its leader, David Koresh, demanded that all the women of the cult halt relationships with their husbands because God said they should now have sex with him instead. Or Heaven's Gate, where 39 people committed suicide in hopes of reaching an alien spaceship together. Or Scientology even, which proposes that humans were birthed from a volcano, planted here from an alien race tens of thousands of years ago. Or the Manson murder, Warren Jeff and his cult of child brides and polygamy. And worse, there are many, many, many more. That's just an American perspective. Probably always there will be, in fact, more. And this is the important question. Why? The answer is actually pretty simple. It's because life is really, really complicated. It's unimaginably difficult to comprehend. Why are we here? What should we do? Where did we come from? Who are we? How can I be happy? How can I be successful? There are incredibly difficult questions to answer nearly constantly. And so we gravitate towards those who are confident in their answers. Sales, for example, is all about conveying certainty. It's why Alex Hormozi insists that your offer includes a guarantee. There's nothing more certain than a guarantee. I remember asking my grandma how she knew that God existed, and she said that it's because I know, and that was her answer. And you know what? Fair enough. She said it with such conviction and without any doubt. And I'm like, well, I guess you must be right. And that's what cults play on, that certainty. Even if something seems insane, it's up against the certainty of the leader. We're all constantly in search of guidance in the form of books, political leaders, ideological groups, religions, podcasts, celebrities, personalities, television shows, news stations, family members, therapists, newspapers, writers, philosophers, lovers, bosses, dead ancient thinkers, priests and saints, prayers and mantras, commercials, brands and companies. They already did all of the hard work. Let me just listen to them, going through the sludge of nuance necessary to figure out anything on our own. And in fact, when done correctly, this staying in your lane, this habitualization of action, finding a general answer and sticking to it, turning off your brain in favor of a greater good, listening to a competent mentor, following the rules, focusing only on what matters, getting into monk mode, minding your mentors, listening only to those who have been there and done that before. This is an incredibly useful and in fact wildly effective way of being. Every time I get on an airplane, I'm literally betting my life on the fact that some vague they, the engineers, the pilot, the 5,000 people all working in perfect unison to create the miracle that is not dying while flying across the world, I'm hoping they're not going to screw it up. I'm just trusting them. I'm shutting off my brain and trusting that the airlines got it. We all do this every day. We all trust other experts without question. Sure, random stranger that just met me 30 minutes ago, give me the drugs that you prescribed to me so I don't pass out and cut open my body and perform surgery on me. I know you're wearing a lab coat, so it seems like you must know what you're talking about. This is what we do before surgery. It's how society works. We cannot do insane due diligence on every decision we make lest we become hermits. Though when left unchecked, and arbitered by a malevolent force, that's when tragedy can strike. Which is why the term cults and brainwashing gets such bad names. Because the Tom Joneses and the Adolf Hitlers of the world have bogarted the terminology so impressively that we miss the trees for the forest, worried that if we get too close, we may get burned. How could we ever learn something from a psychopath? What intelligence could possibly be found within the wicked confines of narcissistic evil? Well, actually, much indeed. So let's dig in. First, let's unpack what we mean by cult. The term colloquially means something like an isolated extreme religious sect, unified around a charismatic, although probably psychopathic leader. Its members brainwashed. What if we could use these techniques, mentorship, leadership, education, community, isolation, extreme, even so-called crazy behavior, quote unquote, unwarranted belief and isolation to our advantage? What if we could brainwash ourselves, not into tragedy, but success? Well, good news, we can. I actually do this every day. The movie I Feel Pretty, an Amy Schumer comedy, I think exemplifies this idea best. Our protagonist, Amy Schumer, is desperate to be pretty, always comparing herself to the model-esque, seemingly perfect women of her soul cycle class. Life would be so much easier if she was a size 0, she thinks. Stronger cheekbones, nicer hair, etc. When one day, after bumping her head, she awakes, looks in the mirror, and now sees herself as a supermodel. Beautiful! Her wish has now come true. It's far-fetched, I know, but stick with me. So now, emboldened, even though she doesn't actually look any different on the outside, she only looks different to herself, she quickly climbs the corporate ladder of her company, becoming the VP of a new makeup line, impressing the founders, finding a handsome, kind, and loving boyfriend, having to fend off a rich, even handsomer other suitor, reaching the pinnacle of her success in no time flat, only to hit her head again, bringing her back to normal. Spins her into a depression, since of course she had attributed all of this miraculous rise only to her imagined outward beauty, until of course she eventually realizes by looking at a few old pictures that the whole time she in fact looked the same all along. The only thing that changed was her perception of herself. Reality did not change, only her interpretation of reality. Her reality was exactly the same, except her belief about that reality and her place in it. Her understanding of the rules of the game that she was playing changed, and thus her position improved. So that begs this question. What if we, instead of hitting our heads and magically believing that we're different, we instead actively and consciously brainwash ourselves into being different, brainwashing ourselves into feeling pretty, brainwash ourselves into just knowing, like my grandma's belief in God, brainwash ourselves into manifesting a new reality? What if we create a cult of our own mind, or a friend group so strong and determined, a Napoleon Hill mastermind group, so cut off, isolated like a cult from the so-called reality of what everyone else thinks and believes is possible, and instead consciously choose to choose? What, my friends, do you think would happen? Well, I'll tell you what happened to me. A few years back, I wrote a novel, which hardly anyone read. It got published, sold a few copies, even went on a mini tour around the West Coast in California, and it sold a few more copies. And it was fun and memorable. But by any conceivable literary metric, it was a commercial failure. In knowing that your first should not be your last, I decided to confront my own inadequacies head on. Further determined and militantly persistent, I then set off on a 10-year journey, which eventually led to where I am now. First off, I read every book I could get on success, because as they say, success leaves clues. What works for basketball, works for running, works for business, works for writing, works for singing, works for sales, works for videography, works for public speaking, works for making wine. The meta rules, which underscore successful specializations, things like deliberate practice, hard work, habit formation, compassion, forgiveness, persistence, stoicism, etc. These are the foundation. And so I studied them and I deconstructed them and then used that deconstruction in my writing. Every book I could get my hands on, every virtual class, every YouTube tutorial, every podcast. But even then, I realized that I didn't have enough time. I was wasting most of my time working in restaurants in order to pay my rent, when I should have been practicing, writing more and more and more and more. So in order to turn pro, I was caught in this chicken or the egg dilemma of all artists. How do you practice without being good enough to get paid? Though how do you get paid without the time to practice? So I used the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week technique and decided to game the system, which in my case meant working in Big Sur, California for 4 or 5 months out of the year, working as much as I possibly could, literally living in my car, showering in the state park, or even using waterfalls sometimes on the side of the highway, saving all of my money so as to take the rest of the year off. And in that time for the rest of the year, I would practice writing. Now, I'll admit that more than a few people suggested that I was crazy. More than a few people told me that I was going to go nowhere. I was technically homeless, that I would always be a server at a restaurant. Countless side glances, "Why are you writing in that journal?" they'd ask. "What's your reading? What are you doing? Why don't you just go out with us?" Wait, what? you live in your car? It's absolutely normal for a friend or family member to look sideways at you while you're obsessively moving towards your own promised man, because it is strange. Because whatever you want, it's probably statistically unlikely. Everyone else is drinking at the bar, watching movies and playing video games, meeting their friends at the cafe and enjoying themselves. Everyone else is satisfied with their companies staying at 6 or 7 figures a year. Everyone else taking the weekends off. Everyone else telling you that you're crazy for spending so much on that new agency. You make $300,000 net. What are you still fighting for? Why do you watch all those tutorials all the time? What do you think you're some coder now? Why do you need so much money? Why do you need to practice so much? Why are you posting on social media all the time? No one's following you yet. No one's liking any of your content. It's not ROI positive for your business. Hey, I saw you're running this morning. Why are you running all the time? Yes, I did for 3 years. And because I knew that in order to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, I had to focus. I had to take all that criticism all the time. I had to believe that I was pretty like Amy Schumer before I was. I had to believe that I was destined for something outside of the norms. I had to do what others were unwilling to do. I had to take the strange looks and the doubts of my peers, and I had to absorb them. I had to use them as fuel, write them down in journals and laugh. You'll see one day, I would think. And here's an important point. It doesn't happen on accident. It's really absolutely 100% going to be really hard and difficult, and you're going to want to quit, and it's easier to be like everyone else. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror and see just plain old you and just plain old everyone else sometimes. And so that means that when that happens, you must have measures in place to fight against that mediocrity. And that measure, it's called, I swear, it's brainwashing. In order to fight the howls of everyone else's complacency, to overcome average, you will have to premeditatively brainwash yourself into a belief system so fierce and cultish that no one's opinions will have any influence on you because you're so determined. For me, that took the form of my morning routine. Every morning I would read a book about success or self-development. Every morning I would read my goals to myself out loud 5 times, like a crazy person. Every morning I would say the same prayer 3 times. Every morning I would write down what I wanted to be in the future in as much vivid detail as possible. Every morning I would say, I will win the Nobel Prize for Literature one day and have a multi-million-dollar company by profoundly and humbly contributing to the greater literary canon through hard work and constant practice. I would say this to myself over and over and over and over again, like memorizing a Bible verse. Then on my days off, when I had days off, I would write and read about writing and those whom I chose as friends, philosophers and dreamers and writers themselves, just like me. I guarded my energy like an innocent child. I guarded my community, just me and a few chosen friends, us against the world, isolating ourselves from the rest of society, ever brainwashing ourselves, manifesting our realities into existence despite all the odds against us, despite our own inadequacies, despite our then stations in society, restaurant servers, for the traveling rich elite class. No matter, we created our own little cult. And now here I am, a professional writer, but not just a writer. I own a company that has other writers, and not just writers, but VAs and video editors and creative social media teams and salespeople and web developers and designers of all varieties. I've created and will continue to create a future beyond my then simple goals had back then. I thought I was being profound in wanting to be a professional writer, but I was thinking small. Now I'm more serious about the Nobel Prize and the big company. And yet, even with that simple goal that I had in my early 20s, out from the ashes, out from living in my car, here I am, which I do not tell you out of hubris. No, I tell you this story with great humility. My intention only this, that for those 3 years, the objective mirror did not show that I was pretty. The objective mirror of society did not prove to me that I was worthy to be a professional writer. The objective mirror of society did not agree that I would have hundreds of employees and clients all around the world. The objective mirror of society did not agree that I would have this channel where I get to write and inspire and meet future clients. Because the outside reality, I was a homeless writer scribbling in my cheap journals. That was reality. But no matter, I had brainwashed myself every morning into a belief in myself so strongly that eventually it manifested itself into reality. As Paulo Coelho famously wrote, and when you want something so badly, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve. And even better, I feel like I've just gotten started. My company does multiple 7 figures and we're on our way to 8, but why not 9? There's another level and I am already brainwashing myself to get there. Instead of the books on general success and mindset and the basics of personal finance, I've now graduated to the in-the-weeds prose of executive leadership and digital marketing and sales. My social media feed is presently a vortex of the world's best performers. For sales, every single day, I watch content from Andy Elliott, Jeremy Minor, and Daniel G. For business, Alex Hormozy, Patrick Beverly, and Naval Ravikant. For health, Andrew Huberman, No Plates, No Dates, and Thomas DeLauer. For philosophy and leadership, Big Think, The School of Life, and Tom Bilyeu. For social media, Gary Vee, Mr. Grateful, and Josh Ryan. For digital marketing, Wes McDowell, Eddie Malouf, and Adam Eckhart. For AI future tools and the AI Grid. For video essays, Johnny Harris, Maggie Mae Fish, Behind the Screenplay, and the Philosophy Tube. And this is not accidental. I have curated my feeds so that I cannot get anything except for what will brainwash me. It's impossible for me to not learn. It's impossible for me to not believe what I need to believe. Maybe I'm not actually pretty yet, but I believe I am. I am more likely than necessary. But if I believe I am more likely to do the necessary actions to turn the belief into objective reality. So, my friends, I hope too that you will brainwash yourself into manifesting your future. For those who have disbelief, isolate yourself from their negativity and doubt. Fight against those who encourage you to accept your current position. Be different, be strange, be outrageous, be intense, be out of the ordinary. Create your own cult of belief. Brainwash yourself so harshly that you literally cannot fail. Write down your own rules. Every day even. Read them out loud if you must. In fact, I encourage you to read them out loud. Post reminders to yourself all over your house, on your desk. Read the right books, listen to the right podcasts, guard yourself against negativity, guard yourself against doubt, and eventually, you won't just feel pretty. You will in the real world. If you have a long enough time horizon, if you play an infinite game, you can and you will accomplish and become everything you want, both inside and out. But remember, the difference between an unruly dissident and iconoclast is subtle and fine. The tiny differences between a cult leader and world statesman is intent. Of course, therefore, be good, accomplish a benevolent end. But do not be afraid of starting your own little cult in the process. Sometimes, in fact, it is the only way. I hope that helped. Thanks for listening. Until next time.